TikTok. Personally, it's not my thing. I very much prefer YouTube, the platform that I've chosen to make my home. I mean, look at all this great content you can find on this site. Isn't it all you could ask for and then some? But TikTok has some good stuff, like the angry Irish golf coach.
That gives you effortless power off the tee and a feeling of tempo with your driver. Day one. Day two. Day three. Air dinger, Marooch. Ready to pop. Ready to accelerate.
Ya Marooch, I'm screaming at the top of me lungs over the Irish wind. The House voted last week to pass a bill that would ban TikTok from operating in the United States or force their parent company, ByteDance, to sell to an American company. It passed the House 352 to 65 and will be headed for the Senate, where it seems as though the future of it is undetermined. The bipartisan proponents of the bill say it is a national security measure, as ByteDance is handling the data of 170 million Americans, and it can easily sell that to Beijing. Everyone from Mike Johnson to Nancy Pelosi agreed on the bill.
This is not an attempt to ban TikTok. It's an attempt to make TikTok better. Tic-tac-toe. A winner. A winner.
Ha 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 ha! She's old. I like to think I'm pretty established in my beliefs, but for this story, I really was unsure. I felt as though on a surface level, both sides made compelling arguments. If China is collecting sensitive data from Americans, it is probably a national security issue. However, at the end of the day, American adults should be able to do pretty much whatever they want, as long as they're not hurting anyone, in my opinion. On the other hand, is TikTok really that important? Is it really a right on the same level as voting or abortion? I mean, I love the screaming Irish guy, but YouTube is still better. Every time this issue came up, I found myself thinking in circles like this. I always looked at it from a consulting perspective. Either party would be flushing the youth vote down the toilet if they went through with this, but it's happening with support from both parties. But as I looked further into this issue, I found that the basic narrative of what is actually going on is not particularly consistent. So today I'd like to go over some of the facts of this story. What are TikTok's ties to China? Does China have influence over the users of TikTok? And what exactly does this ban entail? When it comes to the question of is TikTok owned by a Chinese company, I personally think back to the clip of Senator Tom Cotton grilling ByteDance chief executive Xiaozi Chu.
So, you said today, as you often say, that you live in Singapore. Of what nation are you a citizen?
Singapore.
Are you a citizen of any other nation?
No, Senator.
Have you ever applied for Chinese citizenship?
Senator, I served my nation in Singapore. No, I did not.
Do you have a Singaporean passport?
Yes, and I served my military for two and a half years in Singapore.
Do you have any other passports from any other nations?
No, Senator.
Your wife is an American citizen. Your children are American citizens.
That's correct.
Have you ever applied for American citizenship?
No, not yet.
Okay. Have you ever been a member of the Chinese Communist Party?
Senator, I'm Singaporean. No.
Have you ever been associated or affiliated with the Chinese Communist Party?
No, Senator. Again,
okay.
I'm Singaporean.
Let me ask you some hopefully simple questions.
I don't want to hear your yapping. Tell me that you're Chinese. Tom Cotton may be a moron who can't do a push-up, though he actually does make an attempt, albeit poorly, at raising the question of TikTok's ties to China. After seeing this clip, it may seem crazy to call ByteDance Chinese. Their chief executive is clearly Singaporean. Their board of directors is 2 Chinese guys, 2 Americans, and a French guy. However, ByteDance's other products include Douyin, essentially a Chinese version of TikTok, Tuiqiao, a Chinese Pinterest, Zigua Video, a Chinese YouTube, among other products. Now, just because they make a lot of Chinese products doesn't necessarily determine a smoking gun. But due to China's strict social media laws that essentially require them to be in complete control of any public or private social media, it's safe to say that ByteDance does have a rapport with the Chinese Communist Party. TikTok, like most other social media apps, monitors the users' actions outside of the app, such as keystrokes. ByteDance says that they store all American data in servers in the United States. And while moving 170 million accounts worth of data to China would be a massive undertaking, what about smaller, more specific and sensitive information? According to this CIA report from 2020, while it is possible for China to siphon data from TikTok, there was no evidence that it had done so. But according to some investigative reporting from Scripps News, TikTok has been hiring from the U.S. intelligence community. According to them, TikTok has hired at least 3 former CIA officers, 3 longtime FBI employees, and an NSA target analyst. Other staff have backgrounds in the U.S. Cyber Command, Pacific Command, and State Department. They generally work in TikTok investigations, threat analysis, and law enforcement outreach. So now that throws the CIA report into question because 1, I already don't trust the CIA, and 2, their own employees are now at TikTok. After looking at all that, it seems like if it looks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, it's a duck. And if it speaks fluent Chinese and lives in China, it's probably a Chinese duck. But I'll say I don't have enough facts to come to a complete conclusion on that one, and I'll let you make your own judgment based on the evidence. It seems realistic and possible, but not completely determinable. So what about the claim of Chinese propaganda from the app that has been coming up lately? If you're on TikTok, you'll see a lot of videos like this.
網友屬於生活，人民公開後，這些所上線，網友話到是影響情況，把這方的網友帶給美國友。
It's very funny, I'll give them that. But what they don't realize is that propaganda is a lot more subtle than we all realize. Going back to 2016, the election was not swung by Russia through the vote, but there was a lot of evidence of Russian interference through targeted social media campaigns. The Russian Internet Research Agency utilized numerous social media accounts targeted at marginalized groups to widen divisions among Americans. One of the most popular of these accounts was a Facebook page called Blacktivist that had 300,000 followers. The Blacktivist ruse was part of a larger Russian plot to divide Americans, according to Senator Mark Warner, the vice chair of the Senate Intelligence Committee. An expert told the committee that automated accounts typically push extremist views 25 to 30 times more often than authentic American social media users do. So now we get back to our current situation. There are two bills important to this story. The first being the Protecting Americans from Foreign Adversary Controlled Applications Act. This is the one that is passed in the House and will be voted on in the Senate. Despite its broad name, it does call TikTok and ByteDance out directly, giving them or other foreign adversary-controlled applications 180 days after the passing of the bill, or the president can determine what is done with them. The second bill has been introduced in the Senate, and is a lot more eyebrow-raising, called the Restrict Act. This bill is a lot longer and outlines the process of allowing the Secretary of Commerce to determine what a foreign adversary is, and in turn set the rules and regulations as to what should be done with a given application. While the bill does not explicitly mention a ban, it seems pretty apparent that it's the direction it's headed in. The first bill would set a dangerous precedent, but this bill essentially allows for the Secretary of Commerce, and in turn the President, to have much more power in determining what applications Americans can use. So now that I have personally determined that I do not like these bills, let's see who agrees with me. Here's one member of Congress speaking out against the bill.
There are dangers that lie ahead in this. This is really about controlling Americans' data. And if we cared about Americans' data, then we would stop the sale of Americans' data universally, not just with China.
I never thought I would hear these words come out of my mouth, but I agree with Marjorie Taylor Greene. As I said before, this sets a dangerous precedent, and speaking of dangerous precedents, here's another clip from another very unlikely ally to my belief.
TikTok needs to be brought back into the American orbit. It's an election year, of course, and the Bureau and the agency need platforms to run disinformation campaigns and censorship. So they have to force a sale to the Americans, or ban it. And the American team who buys TikTok will pick up the phone whenever the White House, the FBI, or CIA calls. Heck, they'll probably have former Intel guys on the board, backdooring and interfering. The second America owns TikTok, it's not going to be the same.
In a weird way, I kind of miss him sometimes. If Jesse did the M&Ms, it wouldn't be the same. He just doesn't have the same kind of lust in his eyes. Again, though, I can't believe it, but Fox News is cooking. I hope to discuss my problems with the Patriot Act sometime soon, but for now, I'm vehemently against any kind of government surveillance or censorship. If laws like this continue, it is in the same vein as the authoritarian social media laws like the ones in China. Even outside of TikTok, the internet regulation has been thrust into the public eye recently with the social media age requirements. As much as the elderly and Luddites among us want to gawk at it, many people have gotten their jobs from TikTok, and if TikTok is banned, they'll lose it. Small business owners often use TikTok for important marketing. TikTok is still a network for those to criticize and organize protests against the government. And even if you don't care about TikTok, the bill means more than just one app, and will give our government a lot more power than it needs. But look at it like this. If me, AOC, Donald Trump, Jewish Space Laser Lady, and Boy Toy Tucker Carlson can all agree on this, it's important, Yamarooch!